Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 4th, and right now we are looking at the infrared slash visible satellite imagery. You can see the sun's rays rising across the Pacific Ocean. Lots of cold air out here across the Gulf of Alaska, and we've got some nice snow-making machinery moving in towards the Pacific Northwest. Some cold air aloft is really going to be dumping the snow across the higher terrain, so that is definitely going to be a beneficial thing. We are quite a bit below average here across the Pacific Northwest. And then we will have a chat about the potential for some Arctic air trying to get down into the Pacific Northwest here. Model's been waffling back and forth, going towards showing some Arctic air getting close, and some of it trying to get out of the Pacific Northwest, and some of it not. But it's an extremely difficult forecast. It's kind of a fool's errand to be looking out too far into the extended forecast. It takes a very specific trajectory with some deep Arctic air to get down into places west of the Cascades and create that lower elevation snowfall. But we'll dive into that here some in the video this morning and try to paint a picture of what's coming. Taking a look at snow Saturday into Saturday evening for southwest Oregon. This is going to be the case for a lot of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon. See the snow levels dropping down as you go late Saturday night into Sunday morning. Look at Crater Lake, 8 to 12 inches here. Also from the National Weather Service, Medford, hazardous beach conditions will be in effect all the way from British Columbia into Washington, down into Oregon, all the way through next week. We're going to have large breaking waves at times, and we're going to have some sneaker wave activity up and down the coastal areas. Do not bring your pets or your children into the surf zone, biggest ocean in the world, and it's very active right now here, folks, and you can go really quite a long time here with just some normal wave action. Then you can get some of these huge sets that run well up past the normal wave height, so heads up for that. And this is National Weather Service Portland highlighting that threat as well. You won't see these sneaker wave advisories on the Washington coastline, but they will exist there, so don't turn your back on the ocean. Now, taking a look at the Cascade snowfall here, Saturday, January 6th through January 7th. Nice cold air mass moving in here. Foot or more is going to be had for some areas across the Cascades. And this is a Spokane National Weather Service also calling attention to the big mountain snows incoming here Friday night into Sunday AM. And then another dynamic storm is going to be moving in here as we go through early next week as well. We'll look at some of those details as we go through the video this morning. Potential for more widespread snow, Idaho Panhandle, western Montana. Heads up as you go through this weekend here. This goes for eastern BC as well. So just kind of drawing attention to this quite dynamic winter storm here. And then we have another one coming here as we go through the early to mid portion of the week upcoming. So system moving through today. This is the North American model. You can see that precipitation as I'm speaking right now. This is pushing off to the east. Some convergent zone continuing across some of the central sound here across the Cascades. But then we have the stronger systems start to arrive as we go through the day Friday, impacting western BC, Vancouver Island first. Strong frontal system ushering in a very cold air mass. Very impressive snowfall totals across the higher terrain with that cold, showery air moving in there. And then we've got additional storms after that. Now, taking a look at the GFS total snow to ratio in inches. So here we go through the day today, adding to that snowpack across the higher terrain here. We really need it. And then as we go through Saturday, look at that snow start to fly across the Cascades. So Oregon, Washington, the Rocky Mountains of BC, down into Idaho and Montana as well. And then we have another dynamic system rolling in here on Tuesday. Look at some of these snowfall amounts really pile up by the time we get towards Tuesday afternoon. And then we have the potential for more snow after that. And there's going to be some cold air around here across western Canada. They're hoping to feed these storms, really building up that snowpack. We'll start to talk about the Arctic air here in a second, so bear with me for a moment. Now, take a look at the European, the 12Z run. This is 850 millibars here. So this is that system rolling through today because that colder air moving across the area. And then the better dynamics roll through Friday night to Saturday morning. Then we get a tiny bit of a break here, and another batch of cold air is really going to be getting that snowfall machine going across a lot of the Pacific Northwest. And then you can see that colder Arctic air here is going to be nearby, and the 12Z European kind of brings that back a little bit again here. As you can see, a lot of the sagging across western BC. We're looking way off into the future, so we got to be really careful with the communication of this cold air. It does take a perfect trajectory to bring snowfall down into the lower elevations here, and the GFS is backed off massively on this, and I'll show you what I mean here in a moment. But the 12Z European is kind of reintroducing this. You can kind of see this cat and mouse game that we play at times with Arctic air when it is moving around Canada. Now, looking at the GFS, this is this morning's run versus yesterday late morning's run here, and I want to show you what happened weekend there. As you can see in the short term, we got these snowmaking systems rolling in here with the cold air aloft. Good agreement on that. Pretty dynamic storm rolling in on the day Tuesday. Big mountain snowmaker there as well. And then you can see as we go towards the end of next week, you can clearly see that polar lobe here reaching out and punching the Pacific Northwest. But look at this morning's run. It totally took it away here on the GFS. And then as you saw the European trying to bring it back again here. So this is the difficulty with this Arctic air forecast here. And if you know me personally, I'm always full 100% rooting for the Arctic outbreak into the Pacific Northwest, but you got to keep it real. And there is definitely some model discrepancy on to the fact if that Arctic air is actually going to get out over the Pacific Northwest. So right now, things are very much still up in the air, but you're going to see those snowflakes and those colder temperatures showing up in your smartphone apps, your desktop apps, and some of your local weather people out there are going to be talking about it probably from time to time as well. And you're going to be seeing fantasy forecast maps off and on over the next few days as well if you haven't already. Taking a look at the European, the 12Z run. So let's take a look at this one now here. This is 500 millibars, and here goes our system as we go through this weekend. And we bring another punch of cold air here as we go through Tuesday, but then that polar lobe wants to kind of retrograde and bring a very vicious shot of cold air here. And this would be an extremely cold air mass over the Pacific Northwest, but we got to take this with a grain of salt right now. These are extremely fickle, these polar lobes, how they try to swing back across the area. The trajectory has to be quite right here. Say that 3 times fast, trajectory. But yeah, you can see the 12Z European kind of bringing it back there. So, you know, it's not dead yet, but the GFS definitely took it away. We'll see if it bounces back here on its next model run. Here's the National Blend of Models, 13Z. This is total precipitation in inches, and we are going to have the storm train rolling in here. We're going to have multiple rounds of precipitation, multiple rounds of heavy snowfall, so that is a good thing here. And then as we scroll on in towards, you know, about where the model run ends, you can see some pretty decent amounts showing up anywhere from California all the way through western BC, including the higher terrain of the Rocky Mountains here on in through Idaho and Montana as well. Now looking at the GFS, even though it doesn't show that Arctic air, it does show a pretty nice round of dynamic storms. Here goes the system as we go on into Friday. Very cold air mass ushering in there, nice mountain snows. Then we bring another weak system kind of rolls through here as we go through Monday, but then a stronger storm. It really wants to ramp up here right off the coastline here. You can see that colder air trapped back across Canada here. It does not bring that Arctic air on the 12Z GFS down in the Pacific Northwest, but it does show this strong system. It could be locally windy here, some big wave action, big mountain snows out there as well. That system moves through here as well. Then we've got others on the heel of that. It would be pretty chilly as well, continuing to build up that snowpack. But again, the GFS and the 12Z did not show it. It's really throwing some monkey wrenches into our forecasting here. This is the European. Here's the 12Z. Let's see what it shows, because this is the one that has the Arctic air. Here we go with Friday night system here. You can see potent frontal system, cold air mass moves down across the area, and then we get an additional round of very cold air moving in here, mountain snows, and then that Arctic air. Look at the gradient there. That's that Arctic high, and you can see it make its way down across British Columbia. Is the European overdoing this? Almost certainly, but it does continue to show the prospect for some Arctic air trying to get down into the Pacific Northwest area. You can see it would be some strong offshore flow coming back over the water and bringing precipitation back into the Pacific Northwest. So take it with a grain of salt. Right now, we'll be breaking this down day by day. We'll continue to look at what the models have to say about this upcoming. And this is looking at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. We're looking at 500 millibar temperature. Here goes the system today. There goes Friday night, Saturday system across the area. And then we look out in towards the early to mid portion of next week. You can see both models have a nice shot of cold air, but then you see the polar lobe here on the European. It's not there on the GFS. So that's what we're dealing with there as forecasters. You can clearly see the differences starting to show up when you look that far out into the forecast. That's why you take this with a grain of salt as of right now. And that's why I'm not going to be showing you temperature maps here across Pacific Northwest for the European, not at least in the next couple days or so. We want to get some more model confidence here before we start to try to get into any detail with this at all, because you can see the humongous discrepancies waves between the models. Now looking at 6 to 10 day precipitation above average all the way through January 13th here. No surprise there. Here's the 8 to 14 day. And this will be changing based on, of course, what the models come with up in the next few days. But we do have that below average signal here across much of Western Canada, would include, and much of the western portion of the USA. And also a quick look at the waves. Let me update this, make sure all the most recent data is in here. This is hot off the presses, the European 12Z running. You can see that wave activity increase here as we go through Friday night on into Saturday. That's going to exist all the way into Sunday morning. Get a little bit of a break here, and then we bring some more wave action back in here as we get into the, the Tuesday time frame there on in through Wednesday morning here, and then maybe some additional wave action as we go through the later portion of next week there. But yeah, should be no surprise. It is winter here in the Pacific Northwest, and big waves are not unusual. Now, taking a look here at the snow water equivalent, you can see we are well below average here across a lot of the areas. So if nothing else, we're going to build up some nice mountain snowpack and really pack it in across the higher terrain. And this is looking at the SnowTel here, the current snow water equivalent, and you can see we are below 50% for a lot of the Cascades here. So this is going to be very beneficial. Pattern change upcoming here. But anyway, lots to look at here over the next few days. Is that 12Z European just one last shot of that Arctic air, and then it's going to back off again? Is that 12Z GFS onto something here? Because some of the models were showing the cold air backing off as of last night as well. So take any kind of map you see right now with an extreme grain of salt. I know it's always fun to look off into fantasy land and kind of see what's coming and try to dream about winter snowfall and big Arctic air outbreaks into the region here, but take it with a grain of salt here, folks. You're going to get bombarded with a lot of information, especially if this Arctic air continues to trend over the next few days. But of course, even once you get towards 72 hours of an Arctic air event, there's still lots of uncertainty that is unfolding. And right now we are at 160 plus hours out on that potential Arctic air. So anyway, grain of salt right now. We'll start worrying about details as we get closer. We have a long way to go to get better model agreement. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. We'll do this again tomorrow, break everything down again, and I will talk to you guys then.